How's it going, everybody? Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Carlos, one of your hosts of the Bring on the Blitz podcast, and I'm joined along with Rios. How's it going, Rios?
Going pretty good. Starting to get my voice back. I lost yesterday after the game.
All right, D'Amico Ryans, how's it? Hopefully, you're getting your voice back. And of course, we got the one and only Papi. How's it going, Papi?
It's all good, brother. It's all good.
Hey, man, we're over here celebrating the start of Hispanic Heritage Month. That's right. As you can see, I'm wearing my Mexico jersey here to celebrate it. So glad to spend it with you guys this whole month, man. It's gonna be fun. All right, so let's get to it, man. We're the Texans played against the Chicago Bears, and boy, was it a what a win for the Texans, if you can call it that, man. It was a fight to the end. Before we start really going at it, did you guys expect it to get this way? Rios, go for it, man. Did you really expect it to be that much of a fight for the Texans to go against the Bears?
Honestly, no. I said in our other show I predicted a blowout. I just Caleb looked like a rookie, and the defense kept him in check the entire game. But I'll touch on this a little bit later. But one of my areas of concern is something we did last year, playing down to the competition.
All right, Papi, what is your take over Sunday's performance, Bears Texans? Did you expect it that to be that way or no?
No, man, like kind of like Rio said, man. On our other show, I talked about how it would be more of a dominant performance by the Texans, especially after Week 1. How much they struggled to stay consistent on both sides of the ball. Yesterday it was more of the case of like the offense just couldn't get anything going. The fact that our kicker has been our MVP so far for this season tells you a lot. We talked about all the weapons that CJ was getting this offseason, and so far it's just been like somehow we can't get it to mesh all together like we thought it was.
Yeah, 100%. I think the Texans did struggle. They've struggled the last two games over. I want to agree with what Rio said also. The Texans have been playing down to the competition. The first game against the Colts, I think, that it was a game where the secondary should have been exposed, but it was for a good part of it, obviously, but it was a struggle also for the Texans to get there. But so as Rios mentioned, let's talk a little bit about the areas of concerns that the Texans are suffering. For I'll start first, and then you guys can go all in. I thought an area of concern for Texans fans should be the offensive line, the pass protection for C.J. Stroud. I can't think of how many times I saw C.J. Stroud running around trying to make a play, and then having having them struggle to find a receiver. And I mean, and I'll be honest with you guys, it was weird kind of seeing CJ try to find a receiver when he's got guys like Kate Stover, Dalton Schultz, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins. Now, obviously, he found Nico Collins in the end zone once, and then a few times during the game. I mean, for goodness sake, I think Nico Collins alone had about 135 yards, 10 targets, 8 receptions, as long as of 28, and of course he had the touchdown. So I would say Nico had a great game against the Bears. A little chippy here and there, but honestly, that offensive line it really did struggle to protect CJ Stroud. It happened last game against the Colts as well. But I mean, now here or there, because you could say that I know people have been talking about the field as well being slippery in the Colts Stadium, Lucas Oil Stadium, but in this case they were playing at home, and so the pass protection still seemed to be a problem for CJ, and obviously the Bears also shut down the run game as well, so it made CJ Stroud a little bit one-dimensional because he was just out there throwing the ball, and as you could see, it wasn't as successful as anyone would have hoped for. So I think that offensive line has some issues to fix. I know that Laramie Tunsil had his false starts, but that's kind of common. I mean,
That's just part of his game at this point.
that's part of his game plan, right?
3 a game.
Yeah, and so like speaking of which, like I think Kenyon Green gave up 1 sack and 2 hurries. Jared Patterson gave up 1 sack, 1 hurry. Shaq Mason gave up 3 hurries. Titus Howard gave up 4 hurries. That's as much as we got. But honestly, as much as Texans fans like to talk about Laramie Tunsil's false starts, I mean, there was really nothing going on that side. So it almost begs to differ. I mean, you take the he didn't give up a single pressure, to be honest with you. So at this point, it begs to differ. I mean, you can be okay with a false starts as long as the quarterback is getting protected. So to me, that offensive line is a big area of concern, and obviously now going in, no one currently knows the status of Joe Mixon at the moment. So I think at that point, um, you do kind of worry a little bit for CJ and the offense for sure. But that's just my take on that. I think that's my area of concern. Rios, go for it, bud.
The area of concern I have is something that kind of stemmed from last season as well. These basically the inability to finish drives. I know yesterday one of the one catch that Stephon Diggs had that the entire stadium thought it was a first down. They showed it on the big jumbotron that the ball had crossed the first down marker. They still ruled it short, and it was like maybe an inch or two short. They should have went for it, but they kicked a field goal. I'm like, yeah, we got to stop settling for 3. I get Kaimi's been super clutch this season, but he got to be a little bit more aggressive, especially on a drop that was pretty promising to get all the way downfield and just not go for it on 4th and inches.
Yeah, what I would say, kind of touching on what you spoke about, Carlos, the Laramie Tunsil's false starts. Yeah, it was a problem, but I feel like the biggest thing was the timing of it. Like I feel like we were always getting those penalties, like when we were already like on the 3rd down, trying to go for that first down again, and having those 5-yard penalties, 10-yard penalties going back is like, okay, what else can this offense do? And all of these third downs. It was definitely not a favorable game as far as the 50-50 calls went, but
Not even close.
but it was the biggest area of concern, I would just say, is just that the Texans could not get anything going consistently. They will have 1 or 2 very good plays, couple of good first downs, and then they will just like get stuck. I don't know if that has more to do with the Bears defense or whatnot, but that was a game that it shouldn't have ended the way they did. 19 points on the Bears with a rookie quarterback. I understand that the defense is pretty solid, but you're playing at home, prime time, roof open.
We're getting a lot of sacks. They got a few takeaways. Like they should have took more advantage of those takeaways. Like they did nothing with them.
They had 7 sacks on Caleb Williams. 7.
Yeah,
Defense had 7, and
They
then
still got a sack yesterday. It was
right.
the old Bulls on Parade days.
It was. I agree with you. It reminded you of the old Bulls on Parade days for those fans who, I mean, if you're a Texans fan and you know exactly what we're talking about, but if you weren't there for the Bulls on Parade days, I mean, those were the days where everybody, I guess that's where that swarm mentality that the Texans defense is trying to sell on or whatnot is. Everybody was just going after somebody. Like there was nobody just everybody was hustling, to get to the attack or whatever. So
and the defense looked pretty good for the most part. Like, but it was all on the offensive side of the ball. You look at, like you guys said, Nico Collins had a good game. Probably the only person in the offensive side of the ball that could say, apart from CJ, who still had a down game to his standards, but it's only because he set the standards so high.
Yeah, I was gonna say like for CJ, it's like a C level performance, but like any other quarterback, it's like a B minus, B plus.
Exactly, but Nico Collins had a pretty good game. But then you look at Diggs, only 37 yards on the day, 4 receptions. Joe Mixon, he went down with the injury, so I'm not gonna, talk about him all too much. But somebody that I thought was gonna be a difference maker in this game, Tank Dell, basically non-existent for the whole game, like non-existent whatsoever. Schultz barely got any touches on the game. Cam Akers was the biggest rusher, and obviously because Joe Mixon went down. But if you add up both of their yards, it wasn't even like that impactful of a run game as well. So it was just like, yes, the Texans got the win, which will take every day to Sunday, but it's just the way the Texans are getting these wins that are a little bit concerning.
Yeah, I think before Mixon went down, he was, I believe, at 22 yards or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
And
was
then
under
it,
30.
Which, by
yeah,
the
it was
way, was that a drop hit
hip
tackle?
drop, hip
Yeah, it
drop
was,
tech.
Hip drop tackle. So is
It's
that
the,
not? Was that not? Because when I saw the replay, I was like, "Oh, that's illegal."
I
yeah,
mean, it's their review. They're reviewing it from what is being said. They're reviewing to see if it is, but I mean, that's one of those things that if it wasn't called at the time that it happened, I mean, what's going to be the case afterwards? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
afterwards it made no sense. But I thought the Texans were gonna get a flag and
they should
yeah,
have.
get
because
the downs reset.
Because that's
right,
the textbook definition of a hip drop tackle. He
correct, yeah.
exited the game injured, and he might miss this Sunday's game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's going in for an MRI if I'm not mistaken. The last update
Yeah,
that I
when it
saw.
happened, I was gonna text it in the group chat when it happened, and then
Mhm,
I just saw the game continued like nothing, and I was like,
correct.
oh,
I'm
maybe I got the definition wrong, or
No. I think a lot of people were asking that question on social media if it is or if it is not. And honestly, for the most part, most people agreed
It's almost
that it was. And so, I mean, it's the same. It was a odd back and forth from what I saw in that one because I mean, if you're on the Bears perspective, from the Bears perspective, I mean, Alshire should have gotten the flag for the punch. You know what I mean?
yeah.
At the time it happened. So I'm just giving you the both perspectives or whatever. So
yeah,
it's one of those. It was inconsistent, I guess. It was inconsistent. Yeah.
yeah. The officiating crew was pretty bad last night. They were just like you said, inconsistent on both sides.
Yeah, I think, and because I know because a lot of fans were arguing that on both sides of the ball, like who where would the inconsistencies happen. So, which is
Yeah,
weird when the fans both agree on one thing, it kind of makes you like maybe
there's a common denominator. Like, wonder what
yeah.
it could be.
Yeah, I was like, are the Texans playing the Chiefs? And I'm not like, am I watching the right game? What's going on?
No, I mean, I mean, it is what it is. It's just that the inconsistencies of it was a little odd, but there was a lot of elements that plagued. I think the Texas performance. Also, I mean, honestly, I felt like there were times when they couldn't really get it together or weren't on the same page. I'll give you an example. You know how you brought up Tank Dell?
Mhm.
Um, I think even through training camp, right, Rios, when we went, and then maybe I think you, Papi, when we went to training camp, we saw some of that chemistry with Tank and CJ. Now I'm not speculating anything. I'm just saying what we saw. It was there were times when CJ would get picked whenever it was being thrown to Tank Dell, and then it almost seems like some of the chemistry might be off for the moment. I'm not saying that's going to be a forever thing. Some of the chemistry might be off, and this is not a hot take either. I'm just kind of like this is what I've been seeing and some how some people feel about it. Not a hot take, I promise. Some people probably think, hey, Tank his growth is being hindered by Stephon Diggs on the field. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it's just I know that's another perspective that's being thrown out there. What do you guys think on that one? Papi, you want to start that one first? Do you think
Um,
that Stephon Diggs on the field is hindering the growth of Tank or no?
I don't think so. Like
Okay.
on paper, it should do the quite the opposite. Dick should
Okay.
call on more eyes and bodies to go his way, so that would mean Tank that will be a little bit more free, uh, a little bit more one-on-one coverage, which we know he can create distance. Um, I just don't. Going back to the O line, maybe CJ should just not get enough time to get the ball to Tank. There was one play where Tank went through the middle and
Right.
CJ threw the ball, and it was just a little bit. I don't know if it was just a little bit overthrown, or maybe Tank was just a bit too short. He just couldn't make the catch. I feel like it was a lot of those plays where CJ's having to make the you know last second decision, and it just falls short. It just continued to fall short throughout the game, and it was just like killing drives, kind of like Rio said earlier. Like the Texans were just not finishing off the drive.
Kill the momentum, right? In a way, like it killed the
punting,
momentum.
Punting the ball, and you know, when you look at the way that, you know, Caleb and the Bears offense played, they could probably say a lot of the same things. You know, like I want to say the best drive the Bears had, or the most consistent one, was like in the last 2 minutes of the game, where like Caleb was actually cooking. You know, he got all those rushing yards. He was scrambling a lot, and he was making, you know, the easy but efficient checkdowns. I feel like CJ was always going for the long ball. Not necessarily the long ball, but like the more aggressive play when he was getting pressure, rather than going for the easy throw. But, you know, that's just us, you know, looking from our couch or from the stands. We can't really see what he sees or whatever. But I don't know, man. I think Tangdale still will make a difference in this team. I think he has a lot of potential. We've seen it. It's just like the first 2 games of the season. It's just a little bit underwhelming on his part. A little bit disappointing.
All right, Rios, I know that you before this, you picked Tank as being number 1 receiver, and obviously there's still time. Obviously, I'm not saying that
so far Nico is looking like but Andrew Johnson out there, bro.
Yeah, I want to get your perspective on this. I know how you feel about Tank with that. What do you think is kind of causing a little bit that off chemistry? Do you think it's something they can fix, bro, or do you think it's something that is going to come with time, or they're really just kind of missing the mark here? What's going on in your perspective?
I think it's a little bit of everything, really. I think the timing's a little bit off. When in training camp, he was, you know, the most targeted person. You know, week 1, he had 2nd most targets behind Nico. So I mean, the looks are there. He just didn't capitalize on the looks he had this game. They didn't really look his way too much in the passing game. They were trying to use him a little bit too much like Deebo Samuel, and I don't think that's a good idea. Like, I'd rather not see him take that extra punishment, you know, running the ball, like, because he's not Deebo. Deebo's like 230 pounds.
Right.
68.
I agree 100% with that perspective. Yeah, I did notice a lot of similarities how they were trying to use him as Deebo, and like you said, he doesn't have that.
He's not a gadget player, like, for the most part, because I think during the game, Stephon Diggs was in the slot almost 65% of the time. So that like we have mentioned, or we see him, you know, playing that Larry Fitzgerald role, you know, moving to the slot, because he's going to be a mismatch every time. I think it's just, you know, incorporating a lot of new pieces. It's going to take some time for them to get it together. But which is crazy, because if you think about it, they haven't played well, but they're 2-0. Imagine once everything starts clicking on offense and they get all their guys back on defense.
Yeah, agreed. I think what everyone is seeing, excuse my dogs, what everyone is seeing right now is just kind of like a little bit of what the team is without Christian Harris, without D'Amico Autry, you know, some missing key pieces to the Texans. So I agree with you on that. All right, since we talked a little bit about the concerning part, let's go on and move to the positives. Who gets their flowers? ¿Quién tiene sus flores, right? ¿Quién le damos las flores? So let's see who gets their flowers on this one. Basically our standout shout outs or whatnot. But let's look at the positives first, and then we can do our shout outs. Deal?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So Rios, go for it.
So the positives is Nico Collins emerging as a top 5 receiver. I mean, he is just on a different level. Like Papi had mentioned earlier, shades of Andre Johnson, similar size, similar speed. Like, he bullied his way into the end zone on that touchdown drive. And it's funny because I think you know, earlier in the game, I can't remember which one of the Bears corners kind of, you know, almost poked him in the eye with his fingers went through the face mask, but, you know, another missed call. And like Jordan said, he took it personally.
Yeah, because he retaliated, right? He got the flag for it.
Yeah, he retaliated, and he got the flag.
And the very next play, touchdown. And kind of like you said, like, it wasn't just like, oh, he caught it on the end zone. No, he caught it, and then he bullied his way through. Broke like 2 tackles on the way.
Before the game, Jalen Johnson, the Bears' top corner, was saying it's going to be a no-fly zone. They're not going to do anything on him, and got posterized.
Yeah, I was really excited with the Texans defense. I think the defense really stepped up to the challenge. Now you know one thing that I noticed, Rios, and you let me know what you think on this one. Um, it seemed a little familiar with some of the old Texan stuff. I know CJ had a you know he put up his stats or whatnot. There's nothing against CJ, but I know that there was obviously a time that it was a good chunk of time that the Texans could not get the ball rolling on offense, and they were shut out. And it reminded me a little bit of the old Texans that people were used to seeing. And when I saw the defense's performance of giving up those first downs, or whatnot, and I remembered it's that logic of when the offense isn't fully there and their defense is currently out on the field, they get tired, they get exhausted, they give up first downs and things like that. And then what happens if you keep giving first downs? You start getting beat. That was my area of concern there. Also, I should have added to that, but I think that for the most part, for what the defense was going through, um, with the lackluster appearance of the offense going or whatever, I think that they held their ground. They held to the best that they could. I mean, Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter, I think at the beginning you had mentioned like Derek Stingley hadn't had the best couple of games, right? And I'll let you put it in your own words in a second. But he kind of made up for it in a sense, right? Is that somewhat what you said, or
Yeah, so
paraphrasing?
I texted you guys in the group chat saying, singly, because he had missed that tackle that, ended up being a big gain on
Yeah.
one of
Right.
the drives. And he was more or less getting beat. It just, Caleb Williams was pressured a lot, so he wasn't able to find them. But, he was getting beat a little bit until he got that pick. And then that interception just changed the reception balance for the rest of the game. Like, he ended up shutting down DJ Moore. He held him to 53 yards total.
Something like that, yeah. Papi, what about you, dude? What's the positive, something that made you like really that stood out for you, I guess?
The biggest positive, you guys kind of touched on it already. I mean, don't get me wrong. CJ had a decent game. Nico had a spectacular game. But the reason the Texans won this game was strictly on the defense. Only scoring 19 points. And it was a hard 19 points. It was tough because, like you said, Texans could not finish the drives most of the time. The defense was the one thing that kept the Texans in the lead. Because honestly, if the Bears had taken the lead at any point, and they were close a couple of times, you saw that rookie Kalen Bullock, I believe, he made that.
Caden Bullock, yeah.
He made that TPI on one of Caleb's throws, which gave him the first down, like on the red zone. Is like, dude, and that's how the Bears got their touchdown.
Yeah,
like more errors like that. That's what was gonna, if the Bears would have capitalized on more of those errors, they would have taken the lead. The Texans would have had to, fight against.
Clawed out there to the last second, probably
to the last second, and who knows? It was one of those games where it was an ugly win. It was a win nonetheless, which is my biggest takeaway. Texans are 2-0, kind of like you said, but it was an unnecessarily ugly win. But the defense, that D-line, completely stepped up. I told you guys before the game started, Will Anderson was going to get his first sack of the game. I think he ended up on 1.5.
Yeah.
And everybody was eating on that D line. Everybody was getting sacks left and right.
Recorded sacks. And Henry Toto.
Oh man.
Looking like a really good player on this defense. We talked about the linebackers being an area of concern, and he's really stepped up.
Yeah, I 100% agreed on that. Henry Toto has really stepped up. I guess an unsung hero here for stepping up for Christian Harris as well for not not being there. Henry Toto had some decent, some great tackles, important tackles, just like he did against the Colts. So that's showing some consistency there. I mean, I think Henry Toto has stepped up. I think he quoted saying that he lost some weight also as opposed to last season and has been a better fit for him in this defense, which is stems from that 49er defense or whatnot. So he's obviously putting in the work, and it's obviously been paying off for him. as well. And again, this is all part of the defense anyway. That really, I feel like the defense really carried the Texans this particular
They
game.
really did. They really did.
Yeah. So the next part before we end the Bears Texans game and move on to the Vikings for next week, let's talk about our standouts, shoutouts, who gets their flowers. I'm gonna go with Rios. Rios, who do you think gets their flowers for you?
For this game, Will Anderson Jr. He was
Right.
almost unblockable. Like there was a few missed hold calls where there was 3 guys holding him back and no flag, but other than that, I mean, he was just consistently in the backfield, rushing, hurrying Caleb in, making him uncomfortable. This is what we expected to see, him in year 2, that next level as far as being able to finish and get the sacks. Last year, he would get to the quarterback, but he wouldn't be able to finish and get the sack. I think we'll see, like I'd mentioned before, I see both him and Daniil Hunter both being 10-plus sack guys. And once they get Autry back, it's going to make that D-line even more explosive.
And then Edwards. I mean, Edwards has been pretty explosive for the D-line also.
Yeah, he's been filling in for Autry, and he's doing a really good job.
Did he do the Southside dance? Was it him that did the Southside dance? Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna give my so you're so Will Anderson gets the flowers from you, right? All right. I'm gonna give my flowers over to Kamari Lassiter, the Rook. CB2. At the very beginning of the season, everybody was kind of concerned, well, who's going to fill in that? Everybody knows who that CB1 role is going to go to, and that was to Derek Stingley. By the way, honorable mention, Derek Stingley also can get some flowers on that one. I think Kamari Lassiter has stepped in and settled in that role for the CB2 position. I mean, there's not a lot of guys that can kind of replicate what Steven Nelson kind of did on that CB2 role last season. But I think I apologize. He was CB1 if I'm not mistaken. Steven Nelson, right? Yeah.
He started the year off as CB1.
Yeah. And I think it kind of switched around the roles with Derek Stingley when he came back. Okay. So who was gonna be, that was the thing. That was the area of concern at the beginning of the season before the season started. It was like, how will Kamari Lassiter fit in that role? And I think in these last 2 games, he has fit that role perfectly and has done an outstanding job. I mean, against before I give any stats, let me tell you what D'Amico Ryan said about Kamari Lassiter, who basically got his first interception. Apparently, says it was really cool to see Kamari. The work he's putting in is really cool to see him reap the benefits of that. Getting a pick is a matter of just not him, but the rush, speeding up the quarterback, and it's Kamari having really good hands. That was difficult catch as well, so it was really nice, a nice play by him. But man, credit to him. The kid has been consistent. There you go. I talk about it all the time. He's been consistent where he needs to be every single play, and he doesn't press to make plays. Some guys just get in the spot and try to press to make a play, and then you end up putting yourself in a bad position. He is right in the position all the time, and he benefited yesterday from being able to make the pick. Everybody had heard high regards from the coaches, D'Amico, all around about how good Kamari Lassiter is, and honestly, we're starting to see it. We're starting to see how good Kamari Lassiter is, and it's probably something that they saw early on. So that's for me. He gets it. Honorable mention for Derek Stingley, also who had an interception. Papi, what do you and sorry to go backtrack on D'Amico. Every time you saw the deep ball, you saw Kamari Lassiter right next to or behind the receiver. So I honestly thought he gets his flowers on me. Honorable mention, obviously Derek Stingley, and honestly, I would say Henry To'oTo'o too gets some honorable mentions there.
And not everybody can get flowers, man. Come on.
I know, right? There's only so many flowers that I can give out.
I remember pre-draft or after the draft, a lot of people were concerned about Lassiter's, top end speed. They mentioned the 40 time, how he didn't have a whole bunch of picks at Georgia.
Yeah.
But after seeing him in action in training camp, like I was one of those. I was a little concerned about the speed. I figured, he probably played nickel. He'd be the slot guy, but he locked up that cornerback 2 spot in training camp, and hasn't looked back since. And I think
he's been looking pretty solid. And he shows he's showing consistency in that position. So
he has a real good chance of being the rookie defensive player of the year.
He does.
What,
Hey.
what Houston has
2 years in a row. Right?
Back to back would be nice. Back to back would be nice.
Papi,
my guy who I would give the flowers to, 2 weeks in a row from me, the kicker, Kaimi Fairbairn. He has been, like I said, the best player, the most consistent player. How many 50-yard field goals he's got already in the season? 5 in just 2 games. And we're talking 50 plus, a couple of 55. And I think his longest was like almost 60, 59 feet, right? So I think, the defense obviously carried the Texans this week, but Kaimi put the points on the board. Him and Nico basically got the Bears, got the Texans that win over the Bears. So it's good to know. It's good to have a kicker like that you can count on. The Ravens have been, had their kicker for so long. The Kansas City Chiefs got their kicker. It's a tool that you gotta have. You can't just throw anybody in there,
because that's how you win playoff games.
That's how you win playoff games.
The Chiefs and Bengals, like when they've made it to the Super Bowls, it was on field goals.
Yeah,
kicking long field goals to win the championship. And
it's a long season. It's a long season. Players will get injured. Players will get tired. Defenses, will watch film and get the plays a little bit more. So there's going to be games during the season where you're just stuck. You can't get the ball moving, and you're going to need a couple of 50, 60-yard field goals to go your way. And it's good to know that the Texans have that in Kaimi. So he's getting the flowers 2 weeks in a row.
Changing that number did a lot of good for him.
Yeah, I did. All right, so now we're moving on. Next week, the Texans face the Vikings at home. Sorry, at the Vikings away at the Vikings.
Right? Yeah,
right. I was like, Minnesota. That's right. They face them at Minnesota. Now, it's a dome stadium, so that doesn't really make a difference. So that's fine.
Minnesota, who just came from beating the 49ers,
Exactly. The Minnesota Vikings beat the 49ers with Sam Darnold as their quarterback. Sam Darnold was 17 of 26, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a rating of 109.1. As opposed to Brock Purdy, who threw 28 of 36 for 319 yards, had a touchdown and an interception by I think I can't mispronounce the name, Metellus, I believe, who intercepted Purdy. Honestly, first of all, before we start, how did any of you guys really expected for Minnesota to win against the 49ers? Papi, I'm gonna start with you this time. Did you expect that the Niners to lose to Minnesota?
Here's the thing. On paper, and if you ask pretty much anybody who isn't a Minnesota fan, would have told you that the 49ers were going to win this game. The fact is, the 49ers haven't won at Minnesota for over 30 years.
Really?
Where'd you get that?
49ers have not beat the Vikings at Minnesota for like 30 years.
Really? I did not know that one.
That's wild.
That's a stat that when I saw it, I was like, "Oh,
crazy stats."
Yeah, it's one of those stats that you're like, "There's no way that that's real."
Isn't it like one of those stats where like if Laramie Tunsil for the Texans gets like 2 false starts, that's the Texans win? Like he's like 10-0 to that or something like that, like that, or somewhere close.
That's what that sounds like.
Yeah, it's a crazy stat. All right, sorry, go on, make your point. That's
so. I obviously still thought the 49ers was going to win because there's no way the 49ers don't win that game. The Minnesota, after losing JJ, I speculated that they were going to maybe go on the rebuild, like full-on rebuild instead of the retooling. But, Sam Arnold had a game. Justin Jefferson had a game. Just because Minnesota probably won't be contending this year doesn't mean that he stops being one of the top 3 wide receivers in the league. And the 49ers, they're still dealing with some injuries. They're still waiting for some guys to come back. They're not fully there yet. It's just, crazy that it happened against Minnesota. In Minnesota, if they play this game in San Francisco, it's a 35-3 type of game for the 49ers, but it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
It just makes me a little bit scared because Minnesota actually looked kind of decent, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and it's a very similar defense to the Texans that the Minnesota Vikings just played.
Yeah, if you look at
Defensive offense, yeah.
if
Yeah.
you look at the first two games for the Texans, the lines were actually causing CJ and the offense a lot of trouble.
Mhm.
You look at this Minnesota defense, um, low key underrated, man. It's another one of those gritty defenses that will put pressure on your quarterback, and
Well, your
it,
faces.
yeah. So
Man,
Yeah.
Jonathan Grenard.
I
Yeah.
feel like it's gonna be
Like Cashman.
I feel like it's gonna be a tough one for the Texans, like
Yeah.
a tough matchup for sure.
Rios, man, what you think? What did you expect that or no?
I did. I said when McCaffrey was hurt, like this team is not the same because he was essentially the offense. He was, he's the best running back in the league. He's another weapon out of the backfield. Without him, I said Purdy was going to put up numbers, but they're not going to win games because that whole offense flows to McCaffrey. Sure, they'll put some random undrafted running back there and he'll get 100 yards, but it's not going to be sustainable to win the bigger matchups. I think they probably took Minnesota a little too lightly, and they made them pay for it.
I think I agree with that. I feel like because I feel like regardless, they still should have won this game,
Mhm.
but I feel like they just didn't take it too seriously till it was
And now,
already too late.
and
You
now
played
that
the competition?
and Debo's out for a few weeks as well, so they're really going to struggle. Like I think Purdy's
Yeah.
going to he's going to have a couple bad games because Debo's another one that he would always either look for him in the passing game or hand it off because Ayuk doesn't look like he's in game shape yet.
Yeah, a lot of upsets so far. Bengals being 0-2, Ravens being 0-2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that Bengals game. Speaking of officiating,
Yeah, let's not even get into that. And then the 49ers
well,
losing against Minnesota.
So here's a crazy stat: 53 interceptions called back for defensive pass interference the last few years for Mahomes. So
For Mahomes since what 2018, I think, right?
18, 53 interceptions called back
Is that the most by any quarterback?
by a wide margin.
And all of them happened in Arrowhead.
I don't think on the graphic it gave a breakdown of where it happened. It just said over the last 6 seasons, 53 called back. I'm like, it's a lot of picks.
So, with that being said, I know you're talking about the defense. It looks like Minnesota did allow Purdy to go to throw for 319 yards. Eight of those receptions came from Debo Samuel for 110 yards. Then 7 of those went to George Kittle, distributed to 76 yards. Ayuk got 4 of those receptions for 43 yards. Jennings got 2 for 37. Sauber got 2 for 26. And wow, I'm not even going to pronounce, but I know he's number 49. Yeah. I can't pronounce it. Yeah, Jacuzzi. There you go. No, I'm just kidding. No, his Jacuzzi. Yeah, and he had 3 receptions for 19 yards. So I mean, it seems like it was kind of distributed, mostly amongst Kittle and Debo Samuel. But they did still allow that to happen. So I think that's a good sign for the Texans.
They were playing from behind. They had to throw the ball.
Yeah, like once the game got out of hand or was getting out of hand, I think at some point it was like 20-7.
Yeah,
or 20-3 at some point.
They were behind multiple scores. They had to air it out. They basically
like you already knew, but like and kind of like Rio said, like they put a random running back got 100 yards or whatever, but it almost amounted to almost nothing. They couldn't get it together offensively. I feel like the Vikings played a really good game against the 49ers, and they're not afraid to punch up.
Yeah, they basically made Brock Purdy try to beat them, and without McCaffrey, I don't see that happening.
It's tough to beat. So I feel like the Texans need to watch this game, see what works, see what doesn't work, and then stick to a game plan because Minnesota is,
they're on the prowl.
Yeah.
Uh,
Prowl.
I will say that just the said to credit to Sam Darnold, like I said, he went through 262 yards and 2 touchdowns. But his rating was pretty good. Justin Jefferson had four receptions for 133 yards and a
Yeah,
touchdown.
he's
Naylor had 3 receptions, 54 yards for a touchdown as well. And then after that, it was like passed to Aaron Jones for like 36 yards. Sherfield for 17, Powell for 16, and Munt for
yeah.
12.
It was the Jay Jettis game for sure.
Yeah. So a few mouths got fed on that one, but honestly, it was
I mean,
I
it's the
think
Jefferson show.
yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, it was Justin Jefferson for sure. I'm pretty sure he's pretty happy now, but I figured there was areas of concern there, but Minnesota put on the show. Credit to them on that one.
Well, he got a little banged up last game too, so he's not coming into this week fully healthy.
If I'm Minnesota, I'm trading Justin Jefferson. I'm just completely selling it. I'm just completely selling it, dude. Sell what
Sell the house.
His high.
Yeah.
Sell what his like trade value is up here, man.
All right, so with that being said, we talked a little bit about Minnesota's performance against the Niners. I mean, coming off of a victory against the 49ers, I mean, they're coming in hot. They're also 2-0. So we're gonna see how that is. I'd like to nobody still knows what's gonna go on with Joe Mixon. So if that's the case, if he's not able to play, then you'll have probably Dameon Pierce because he's banged up a little bit too, but for sure Cam Akers. But
I think Pierce is going to be out because he has an ankle issue also.
Yeah, so there you go. And so it looks like a Cam Akers a Wanda Wally show, maybe.
Yeah, I think they were saying on 610 that they expect Akers to probably be the starter this coming game against Minnesota because Mixon's obviously not 100%, but they don't know if he's going to play or not. So
yeah. I will say this: the credit to Cam before the fumble, like he was gaining some yardage on the Bears.
The fumble did,
Fumble did take that from him, though. That's the worst part.
Tarnish the game that he was having, but
before that, I mean,
I can definitely see him having a way better game against Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
It's just gonna be like it's gonna be a good matchup. I really need other people other than Nico to step up. Diggs got the touchdowns in week 1, and then yesterday couldn't make a lot of things happen. Again, some of the 50-50 balls didn't go his way, but still, he's like the big name star for the offseason. And also Tame needs to figure it out. Him and CJ need to really figure it out. And I would like to see some more tight end action. I feel like they're not using him as much as they did last season.
Yeah.
Well, I figured that was going to happen because you got a lot of mouths to feed in the wide receiver group.
True, but damn.
Yeah.
19 points.
I mean, at this point, from looking at, again, I'm looking at stats over here. The receiving stats obviously for Tank didn't look so good. If anything, negatives if I'm not mistaken. But
if you caught that 50 yard, we're talking a different ball game.
Oh yeah, big time.
If he catches that ball, then yes.
Yeah. Another thing though, I think if we're talking about the rushing, they've been using Tank to rush here and there. I mean, he alone had like 6. I know it's not much, but he had like 16 yards on that game, and they've been kind of using him to run in the back.
You don't want him to. Last time he went for contact, he got hurt.
Right. No, I understand that. I'm just saying I think you might see that again if you're really trying to disguise the run based on who you have as in the run game. They might use him in that way.
I wouldn't use him for that, dude. Use Hutchinson for that. Use Mitchell for that.
Yeah, Hutchinson, I could see that. I think that'd be a viable option for sure.
Don't put Tank Dell in that position.
I know. That's what I'm saying. They've been using them in that position, so they may again. But I agree with Hutchinson.
Yeah, I don't like seeing them using Tank Dell like they use Debo. They're two different bodies.
Two different players, completely different players.
Like honestly, I think they should try to look for some more deep shots to Tank them because he's your other outside receiver. Because Diggs is primarily in the slot, in 3 receiver sets. They need to design a couple plays for him.
I know. All of us, for the last 2 weeks, when we made our predictions, we all we were all talking like, multiple possession games in the favor of the Texans, right? We did not think the Colts game was going to go down to one possession. We did not think that the Bears game was going to go down to one possession. Going against Minnesota and Minnesota, do you guys think it's going to be more of what we've seen so far?
I think so too.
I think it's going to be a one possession game.
One possession, kind of ugly. I would
Kind
say
of ugly, like, because
I don't expect it to be high scoring. Honestly,
no.
what are we thinking? Give me some predictions.
Get your blood pressure medication going. I think the Texans like giving the fans almost heart attacks. So I would say
they're learning from the Astros. That's what they're doing.
So
get some rings out of it. Hey, I'll take a shortened life.
But yeah, I would say I'll predict first, I guess. If I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say 2017, like a 3-point game.
That's
I know,
ugly, man.
That's what we've been seeing lately. Like that's what everybody's been seeing lately. So if it's gonna be ugly, I'm gonna say ugly. 2017 Texans. I think they come out with a victory.
I'm gonna go 15-12 Texans. It's gonna be
wow.
God, ugly. Ugly.
I think this Minnesota defense is they don't look that impressive on paper, but on the field the last 2 weeks, like they're really underrated. And I think we're gonna struggle, especially if Mixon's out, because I like Akers, but I don't know about being the lead back.
Yeah.
I gotta see it, but I'm predicting all field goals. Kaimi is gonna be the MVP yet again.
Start him in your fantasy. I have him.
How many points did he get you last week?
He got me 19.
Dang,
he had more points than Dak Prescott.
You get all day, every day.
More points than Dak is crazy. Oh man, that's tough. I'm gonna say I'm confident. I'm confident they're gonna figure it out this week. They're gonna figure it out this week. I'm gonna say 28-17 for the Texans.
28-17?
28-17. I think they're gonna figure it out. I feel like the defense is almost there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the offense needs a little bit more work. But I think this week they're gonna figure it out. I think that they're gonna watch this Bears game. They want to watch film all week, and Nico's gonna get him all like in line now. I think 2 games to start out the season. Luckily, 2-0 to show for it. But I think week 3 is when they really kick it into gear.
I'm gonna say week 4 against Jacksonville, because they lost a close game because they didn't have Kaimi last year. I think that game is where they really – it's kind of similar to last season. They offense kind of struggled those first 2 games, and they played Jacksonville, and they scored 37 points, and they just didn't look back after that. I think it's going to be something similar this year when they play Jacksonville. They're going to put up a bunch of points, hold them to field goals or single digits, and just really start clicking on offense.
No, I think we do it against Minnesota. I mean,
if they do, great, but I'd rather see it against Jacksonville.
All right, and to end it, I'm gonna give you D'Amico Ryans' quote on his early impressions of the Minnesota Vikings. He said, start quote, Minnesota, good, really good team. They're coached really well. Their defense is playing great. I think they've held opponents to, under 25 points so far. Their defense is playing really lights out. Offensively, they played well yesterday, had big explosives. They're playing well together, so we'll get further. We'll get more into those guys as we go through the week. But 2-0 team, we know Minnesota is always a tough place to play. The crowd there is they're always loud. They make it challenging on us from an offensive perspective. So I already know going into it, we have to be on it with our cadence. We have to be on it with our pre-snap communication all the way across the board, end quote. You know what that tells me? Laramie Tunsil, false start.
Yep.
Calling it now.
He gets a false start for every eyebrow he doesn't have. Every game.
Wow.
Come on, man.
I love him though. I love him though.
No, he's been awesome. He's been great. He's been
It was
elite.
awesome
Yes,
to
the
meet
false
personally.
starts, but hey, man, if there's a place where he's going to get a false start, it's going to be at Minnesota because of that loud crowd.
Yeah.
And that pre-snap cadence has to be on lock. So, other than that, anybody else want to add anything else to the table? Rios, Papi?
Well, speaking of my other favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys. Man,
What are
the Saints
all
against-
season. Like, you guys didn't really improve anything. Like, don't let a week 1 win, fool you guys into thinking this is your year for year 30. It's
Are the Saints for real?
it's.
Don't
I was
do it,
at
Papi.
one of my
Don't
friends,
do it, Papi.
and he thinks they're for real. Like, I don't know. I think you guys beat on 2 bad teams.
Don't do it, Papi. Don't give me homework. Don't give me homework. I will be mad at you. I think the Saints are doing quite well. I think they're on a legitimate collision course. So I think they're gonna go pretty far this season. So
I
I
don't know,
think the Saints are pretty good.
when your running back scores, what was it, 4 TDs?
Yeah, 4 touchdowns. If you had him on fantasy, you
Yeah,
beat everybody.
He's looking like the Kamara of old. Because
Yes.
he looked like he had lost a step a little bit, but this year he's playing at a different level. And I don't know. I think it's going to be a battle between them and the Buccaneers for the NFC South.
Yeah, the Buccaneers are looking pretty good themselves. Baker Mayfield, who would have thought a guy released from Cleveland goes to Carolina and then goes and does a heck of a better job over there in Tampa Bay. So
I bet Carolina wishes they had Baker Mayfield right now.
they benched Bryce Young. Canales benched Bryce Young. I mean,
I told you they're going to do something that they're in panic mode, and
I thought that we're gonna give him a bit more time, but it hasn't been pretty.
no.
yeah,
It's not been pretty.
If
it is
things
not.
go soon, I would not be surprised if someone on the offensive staff gets fired, or even the head coach.
Yeah, I know you mentioned it last. I think you mentioned it once before. Like you feel like the coach might. I mean, they're putting in Andy Dalton. I mean, I'll be quite honest. I didn't realize Andy Dalton was still playing, but he's there.
Yeah, he's a little bit like Jerry Jones. He likes to meddle a little too much, and I think he's going to make a panic move and do something drastic to try to force a change. But I mean, up top to bottom, they have one of the worst rosters in the league. Like outside of they have like one blue chip player. Other than that, like there's most of these guys wouldn't start on most teams. Like I don't know what they expect Bryce Young to do.
Yeah, Papi. Like any last comments that are appropriate?
No, because then you tell me I'm giving you homework. So no,
Yes.
we'll stop it there.
There we go.
Stop
Thank
it
you. Good job. Look at you. Very mature of you. All right, guys. That's going to be it for our show. Join us next week, and we'll be back to talk about the Texans versus the Vikings and all around the NFL. Papi's upset. We're going to end it before he gives me homework. And please don't forget, boys, gentlemen, and boys and girls, whatever, whoever's watching, subscribe to our channel at Bring On the Blitz Pod. Also follow us on our Instagram account at BBlitzPod, and of course our X account BBlitz Pod, of course. And of course, this comes. We are part of the RS Skina Podcast Network. Please follow them up at RS Skina as well on the X. And of course, they have some great interviews as well on the Instagram account. Check them out at RS Skina on IG. And of course, for some top-notch, top-tier Astros and MLB content, you got to hit these guys up, man. The Full Steam Ahead crew, also part of the RS Skina Network. They do such a phenomenal job of talking Astros, especially now that it's mid-September. So the Astros, as always, they have the Invitational coming up. So
they did a giveaway. They did a giveaway on their Twitter.
Yeah, they did.
And they did not pick me. And I'm upset. I am triggered. I demand a recount.
Yeah, recount. There you go. Hey, man, follow those guys. They're amazing at what they do. So follow them up. And that's going to be it for us this week. Again, follow us up. Hit the subscribe button, and that's going to be it, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. See y'all next week. Peace.